I'm going to start with you, Geragos, because your daughter is one of the lead lawyers defending P. Diddy. So how do you think it's going so far? They picked the jury last week. They had opening statements yesterday and their first and second witness, and they're in the middle of crossing that second witness right now.
On a personal level, I was in court yesterday. I watched her deliver the opening statement, and I had told somebody who was sitting next to me, I only wish my father was alive to have watched it because he was my partner. And the talent skips a generation. I mean, I know she's my daughter. She hit it out of the park.
That's sweet. She was making.
Now, I will criticize the courtroom artist because that bears little or no resemblance to my daughter.
They're never very good. There's a very funny Modern Family episode where Mitchell is in court arguing, and the person who's the sketch artist is somebody who he dissed in a former life and just makes him look ridiculously bad. And his whole goal is to be drawn more favorably by the sketch artist. We have to rely on sketches because it's federal court and they don't allow cameras in federal court. It's very annoying. But I would say this. I'll go to Eiglarsh on this. I thought she made the only and best argument that's available to Diddy, which is he may be a bad person who you can't stand, whose sex life is bizarre and offensive to you, but that doesn't make him a criminal under the RICO Acts, and you can't confuse your disgust for his personal choices as a human with seeing him as a violator of the criminal law.
That's right. No, content-wise, she was perfect. She took that video and said, you're not going to like him. You may not. You may find him abhorrent. You may find his conduct deplorable. But he's not charged with domestic violence. He's charged with other acts. She also did a great job of saying, look, his lifestyle is maybe not one that you might endorse. Maybe you don't engage in. He's a drug user. He's this and that. She got out all the wind out of the government's arguments, all that bad character stuff. And I think that she's got a shot.
Here's what these are highlights from her opening as reported on the Law and Crime podcast. First of all, they keep calling him Sean, not P. Diddy, not Puff Daddy, just Sean. He was wearing a gray sweater in court yesterday, just like a little, Catholic schoolboy, and actually was seen reading the Bible before the, okay. Okay.
But theater, she said, Megyn. It's theater.
The government has no place in Sean's bedroom, that he can get angry, and there's been some domestic violence too, but that's not criminal racketeering. Baby oil is not a crime. Essentially the theme with these women is...
By the way, Megyn, sitting in the courtroom, the only time I saw jurors actually laugh during both the government and the defense openings was when she made that little kind of snide remark about the baby oil.
Oh, God.
That is the only time you saw a stone face kind of melt.
Well, ask any woman or man who grew up in the 1970s. It used to be slathered all over us as we search for the perfect tan, which somehow both of my panelists today have managed to achieve. She said, and this gets to the heart of it. These women are adults who made their own choices. And here it has real parallels to the case that our other panelists frequent on Kelly's court is now trying. That's the reason Arthur Aidala isn't here today, which is the Harvey Weinstein case. It's a similar defense. Like, we know you don't like our defendant, and we know he seems like a terrible man to you, but being a terrible man morally is not the same as committing a crime. And in both cases, both Diddy and Weinstein, you had women claiming that they were abused or raped or mistreated who kept coming back over and over and over, in some cases for years. And I think that it may be hard, Geragos, for some jurors to get past that. You can understand if a man rapes a woman and she runs to the police. It's much harder to get your arms around why she would have a years-long relationship with this person. And that's an issue in both of these big trials.
Obviously, I've known Sean forever. I represented him for years. Actually, currently represent his mother in an unrelated action. I will tell you one of the things as I'm sitting there, and it's obvious, full disclosure, I'm watching my daughter and I'm watching people that I know. But one of the things to me that was most stunning about this case is if you've been listening to all the noise running up to this case, if you've been listening to everything, if you're on Twitter and you have a feed, or X if you have a feed, Instagram, you assumed so many other things were at play in this case. And when you get up there and you actually listen to the opening arguments and realize that what we're talking about, what this case is now boiled down to, is two long-term ex-girlfriends and one employee, that's who the gravamen of the 4 or 5 counts, depending on how they're going to reframe this now that the third so-called accuser is not going to be called. That's stunning.
She took off. Yeah. The third accuser is nowhere to be found.
I don't know that if that's accurately being portrayed. I won't go there. I'm not so sure that we ever had her.
Oh, fascinating. Okay, Mark's got some insider information. He's just going to be a tease, not give it to us straight. But I think I hear you.
By the way, Megyn, how often is it that as a lawyer you've ever been sitting in the audience, had somebody tap you on your shoulder and say you're going to the principal's office? So I'm very attuned.
Mark Eiglarsh, our friend here, got in trouble with the judge, even though he's not even a lawyer on this case. Only you, right. Geragos. You get called into the judge because he was mad about a comment you made on a podcast you do with Harvey Levin of TMZ. We've got your comment that got you in trouble. My team's way ahead of me. Let's hear what you did.
Let's talk about the lawyers. So the prosecution now, we know, it just came out today, that they have 5 lawyers on the team, all of whom are 6?
6.
Now, the ones I know of 5, all women. Is the 6th a woman?
Yes.
Okay, so yes. 6 women, all white. All white.
Correct. That's my understanding. I've only seen a couple of them, or know of a couple of them, but my understanding is you got a 6-pack of white women.
That's not coincidental.
It's very interesting to me. But, when prosecutors try to get too cute, you referenced O.J. Simpson, sometimes it comes back and backfires on.
Okay, so Judge Subramanian.
How is that, Megyn, how is that not constitutionally protected speech? I can't imagine that Geragos didn't give it back to the judge unless he just said, all right, fine, judge. I want to know what you told him. This is protected. You're allowed to say that.
Well, let me just tell the audience first what the controversy is, even though, sadly, we're both on Geragos' side on this particular controversy, because it would be much more fun if we could beat down on him. So the judge, Subramanian, called you in there, again, even though you're not a lawyer in this case. You're the father of a lawyer in this case, and obviously it seems you're consulting. But and he says to you, according to... I don't know the source from this article I'm reading from. NBC News, that in his chambers, he'd be listening and watching you to make sure that you don't say anything else that could interfere with a fair trial. Hi, Judge. Great to have you watching Kelly's Court. I think this is ridiculous, he said. I think referring to the prosecution in this case as a 6-pack of white women is outrageous. This would not be tolerated in any court from any lawyer anywhere across the nation. Why? Why is he so offended at that comment, Mark?
Well, I'm not going to, I really enjoy him. I mean, I think he's been very fair. I didn't realize until I read the transcript. He basically said, I'm going to be watching you. I'm going to be watching the podcast. And I said, well, as long as you subscribe. And that's where the transcript ended. So I did not mean to be flip, but I'm a little, the optics of this case, I will tell you, watching the jury selection and everything else, the optics of this case are kind of bizarre to me. And somebody had reported yesterday, so I'm going to repeat what was reported yesterday. We've already discussed what the prosecution looks like. The prosecution is being brought by the Civil Rights Division of the Department of Justice. And it regards 2 other girlfriends. It is a black man, and yesterday the government exercised peremptories. So out of their 9 peremptories, their first 7 of those 9, or at least 7 of those 9, were against the blacks. So the optics here to me, and by the way, I didn't know they were going to do that when we had that discussion, but I don't know why that isn't.
Mark, what was the race what's Cassie's race? What's the race of this guy who claims he was a sex worker brought in there?
The other girlfriend?
Yeah, I mean, most of the accusing witnesses against him are black too. We're not going to OJ this case. Let's keep going. I hear you on the defenses, but I have to say this. So he's been charged with racketeering, sex trafficking, transportation to engage in prostitution. These are very high bars: racketeering, sex trafficking, and transportation to engage in prostitution. Now, Mark Eiglarsh, now we're in business. Now I'm liking the prosecution's case better than on the RICO count, because the defense was saying yesterday, with respect to, because there was testimony from one of the sex workers, this guy is a witness in the case, and his name is Daniel Phillip. He was the second witness. The first was a security guard at the Intercontinental who was there in the aftermath of that beating where Sean Combs did beat down Cassie. We all watched it on camera. It was absolutely disgusting. He's a pig, and I can't fucking stand him, but I'm open-minded to him not being a criminal, just saying, in the way alleged here. Daniel Phillip was witness number 2, a male dancer who said he received money repeatedly from Cassie, the woman who was beaten on that tape, to have sex with her in front of Diddy at the Gramercy Park Hotel, that she opened the door in a red wig, that there was a man already there she claimed was her husband, said he would just watch them. The man had a bandana over his face and was wearing a hat. He was referred to as Baby. It was Sean Combs. He claimed that he was working in import-export business. Cassie and Daniel had sex. He was getting paid for the sex, Daniel was. Diddy watched and pleasured himself. Baby oil all over each other. Diddy complained, not enough baby oil. He was obsessed with the baby oil. That Diddy's daughters, again, this is per Long Crime, left the courtroom when this testimony was being given. They didn't want to hear this about their father. His son stayed. That no sexual protection was used. That Cassie messaged him after the fact for, forgive me, but a dick pic. That it happened multiple times over 2013 and 2014. He saw Diddy physically abusing Cassie, or at least heard him slapping her behind closed doors. Diddy would direct the sex, saying, slow down, finish off, if you will, here or there on her body. Cassie wanted him to urinate on her. And then I saw another report saying Diddy instructed him to urinate in her mouth. Forgive me, this is very tawdry stuff. And then Diddy would be pleasuring himself to it. That they wanted a copy of Daniel's driver's license, and therefore he felt threatened or like Diddy could come back to hurt him. That he urged Cassie to leave Diddy, saying that, he's going to hurt you. I tried to explain to her she was in real danger if she stayed. Okay, so that's this guy's testimony. And the reason I'm going to you, Eiglarsh, on this is that the defense to this seems to be he was paying these sex workers like Daniel, and there'll be others who claim that they were paid, I think. Well, there have been in the press. We'll see whether they actually call them. That he was paying sex workers not for sex, but for their, and I quote, time and experience. Time and experience. That it was not transportation to engage in prostitution so much as, I guess, to gain their expertise as sex workers to advise, I guess, on how it can be done in the most filthy, offensive ways possible. Thoughts on all that?
Okay, well, if it's believed, then that's a pretty good defense. Why would it be believed? Because it's bizarre enough, like everything else they're going to hear. This is not reality as they would consider reality. The reality to Diddy is a completely different world. So if his defense is a little off, a little bizarre, that would be fair and consistent. Most of the things you just read, by the way, are things that can be overcome by arguing consent. Everybody's playing along.
Not the prostitution. Not the prostitution, Mark. Not that. Not transportation to engage in prostitution.
I'm not so sure about that, Megyn, because
they're arguing consent, Megyn. Yeah. Everybody's involved. Everybody's okay.
Yep.
Well, no, what do you mean? The hooker's always involved and okay with it. She always consents.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but when you take a look at the statute and you interpret the statute, what you're doing here is you're actually trying to turn it on its head. It's designed for the so-called way. I'm old enough to remember when you used to call this pimping and pandering. This is designed for the pimp. It's not designed for the John. And that's where they've turned it on its head.
This July, there's a global summit of BRICS nations in Rio de Janeiro. The bloc of emerging superpowers, or so they hope to be, including China, Russia, India, and Iran, are meeting with the goal of displacing the U.S. dollar as the global currency. They're calling it the Rio Reset. As BRICS nations push forward with their plans, some worry global demand for U.S. dollars could decrease, bringing down the value of those dollars that are in your savings. While this transition, if it happens, will not happen overnight, the Rio Reset could mark a pivotal moment. So learn if diversifying your savings into gold is right for you. Birch Gold Group can help you move your hard-earned savings into a tax-sheltered IRA in precious metals. Claim your free info kit on gold by texting MK to 989898. With an A-plus rating from the Better Business Bureau and thousands, tens of thousands of happy customers, let Birch Gold arm you with a free, no-obligation info kit on owning gold before July and the Rio Reset. Text MK to 989898 today. Thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes.